All right. Y'all about ready? I think so. Yeah. Excited. I'm excited. This is gonna be fun. All right, we're gonna get started. So I'm gonna give a little bit of a spiel and rundown on how this is gonna work out, and we will navigate from there. A lot of us have been in these classes in the past, and so you already have a rundown of how these go. But for those of us that are new to the format or new to my humble abode, this is how it works. First of all, my name is Lux, and it's great to have y'all here or meet y'all. I have to my left or right, depending on how your screen is positioned, Emily, and then to my other left or right, depending on how your screen positioned, Chris. And the three of us are really excited. We have a lot of content that we're going to get through in the next few hours, and it's going to be a lot of things that are in our practice already initially, and we're going to use some of those foundations to build onto some progressions in things that might be more complicated, but also somewhat familiar. And then we have one piece that we've been working on, an old piece, but looking at a new twist on it, and really excited about that. One of the things that Emily and I have found flying it is that it's a little bit dizzying if we haven't practiced in a while. My equilibrium is not quite as quick as it used to be to acclimate to some of these things. So we're well prepared with things like ginger beer to make sure that we can stomach the rotations.
Stomach my base.
And so one of the things that we've been finding out is that, like, oh, you know, we haven't been practicing with the frequency that we're accustomed to, and so parts of the body that are generally accustomed to having pressure on are relearning their sensitivities, and so we want to make sure that throughout this class, flyers especially, that we communicate to our bases the importance of softening the feet and really making this flight time more and more comfortable. And bases, really be thinking about your footwork a lot through this. And we're gonna, we've planned this out so that we will destroy the hips for a while, and then we'll abandon the hips and destroy the shoulders for a while, and then abandon that. And so we'll really try to space it out to different parts of the body so that no one area is the only focus of getting braced. And then for those of us that are new here, let's talk about how we communicate in this online format. Generally speaking, everyone here is muted. If you have a question, you'll have to unmute yourself to ask the question, but we don't want people all unmuting themselves at the same time and talking over each other, so we will call on you before we do so. The basic hand signals that we use are, first of all, just an affirmative so that we know that the microphones and the speakers are working. It is broadly a thumbs up. Sometimes it's going to be just to an affirmative. Sometimes it might be that I'm asking a question that really doesn't have a yes/no answer, but the only really thing you can do is a thumbs up. So just know that thumbs up is our just general communication for, like, yep, on the same page, we're continuing to move in this place. If you do have a question that you want your voice heard, what we want you to do is come right up to the camera and cover it. If you cover your camera, it becomes really apparent to us that one of these screens needs attention, and we will call your name, and then you can unmute yourself, which if you're on a laptop, you can hit your space bar, and that will unmute you. Give it a moment for the microphone to kick in, speak your question, and then you can mute yourself again, and we'll give you an answer. If you need back and forth there and ask more questions, you can continue to unmute yourself in that moment of the conversation. One of the things that we get the most is that people want to see demos again and again and again. And so we've developed a hand signal for, hey, can you just show that demo again so that we don't have to go through the process of the audio? And so what we do is right up in front of the camera, we interlace our index and thumb together and just make this loop shape. And then that's going to communicate to us that we want to see the demonstration again. And again, that's very distracting to the screen, and that is easy for us to see. Those are nice, clear communications. And then the last one is that if you want us to watch your next attempt, cover up your camera with your hand, which will get our attention. And then you point to your eye right in front of the camera, and that just says, hey, will you watch this next attempt? Either that or, hey, I have something in my eye that I'm trying to get out, and we'll let you know where it is. So those are our basic communications, and then let us know if there are any other needs that y'all have. Throughout this practice today, we're gonna find that we may fatigue sooner than we anticipate fatiguing. And so we want to be very respectful of that process and know that if that happens to myself or to my partner, that we want to take a step back from whatever progression we're doing and do something that will make it so that we're not just burning out and making this less pleasant as we go forward. So do check in with each other frequently and ask, do we need to modify this? Do we need to take a step out of this and do less? Is there something that we can do to make this more pleasant for each other? And so please do let your communication be the vehicle that our physicalities are derived from, and make sure that we're listening for those cues in our partners, be it the breath is held for a long period of time. Do you feel muscle strain? Do you feel fatigue in our partners? And let's address that. Know that this video will be available for a week past this date, so that if you are like, I can only get through an hour and a half, and there's still a long period of time left, you can come back and revisit this content via that video when you have more rest, more energy, whatever it is. Some of us have children that are running around that may demand the moment of our time. And if we miss anything, don't worry, the video will be there so that you can refer back to it in your leisure practice over the next bit of time. Any questions? All right. Yeah, we're getting in the line of the projector. Okay, so what we're going to do initially is we're going to do a little bit of individual warm-up where Emily will be leading us through some of our physicality, and we will follow along and move together just to warm ourselves up and make sure that our joints are nice and lubricated before we get into partner work. If it is not everything that you need, please take time to make sure that your body is well prepared before we move into partnership. We don't need to strain muscles or joints, connective tissue in an effort to get through class. We want to make sure that we're doing it in a way that does serve our long-term selves, right? This is that moment for the thumbs up, which lets me know that the audio is still working. And then you and sound, we have connection, but really we don't have a bad connection. I'm just messing with you.
We got a middle finger.
With that, I'm going to turn it over to Emily to warm us up.
All right, hey everyone, let's begin. Stand up. And yeah, I saw some of you do that already, so we're just going to do some jumping jacks. Keep those arms up over your head. Chris, do you want to move with me?
I do.
Yeah. Okay. Keep your arms really nice and extended. Jump as much as you can. Great. Thanks for joining, Kristen. All right. From here, we're going to jump into a squat. Bring your hands close. And then legs together. And then jump into your squat, down low, and together. And repeat. Thanks. So this is for you. Maybe starting kind of mid-range squat and seeing if you can deepen that squat each time. Great. Let's do one more. Awesome. For this one, we're going to pause and hold. Sink down into your kind of lowest range. Beautiful. Whew. Heart rate up a little bit. Bring your hands down toward the floor. Extend your legs. Drop your head. Into those hamstrings a little bit. And we're going to move back and forth between those two. So sink down into your squat, drop your head, extend. And let's do about 3 more of those. That's beautiful. And last one. Great. Come all the way up to stand. Reach your arms up over your head. One arm is going to travel forward, the other is going to travel back to your shoulders. Yeah. If you forget which direction your arms are going, that's okay. Just like general swimming. Motion is all good. Some swimming. And then reverse. So the other arm is going to travel forward first, and then the other. Flex is hiding in the corner.
As always, half on
usual.
screen only.
Great. All right. The next time that your arms come up overhead, we're going to get into our wrists. So just make fists with your hands and circle the wrists in one direction. Might get some clicking. And then reverse that direction. Great. As we do this, step your feet a little bit wider, bend both your knees a tad, let your arms drop to your side, and get into some twists from your spine. And let your arms flat. Any use that for your body, Chris?
It's good so far.
Yeah, okay. A few more moments. Set those feet back together. One is going to come forward, other is going to come back into a lunge. For balance, you can have your hands on your hips if that is helpful. And then from here, you're going to bend that back knee slowly, but not quite touch the ground. And then push and come back down. And you feel this. It's like little elevators. This next one, we're going to lower all the way down to that knee and then reach your arms up overhead. And just take opposite elbows. If you want a little bit of a deeper stretch for the shoulders, you can just reach for one elbow, pull it closer toward the midline. Great. And if you're doing one arm at a time, switch sides. Reach both arms up overhead. Lower, extend your front leg, and around over. If you can't see my foot, I'm going to scooch back a little bit. This is for our bases. We're going to internally and externally rotate from the hip. So internal rotation brings the toes in, external rotation toes out. And do, I feel those little windshield wipers. How does that feel?
Good, good stretch.
Good. Chris says it feels good. Ease back into that lunge one more time. I'm gonna see if you can come back up. So you're gonna tuck your back toe, slowly lift that knee. Awesome. And step it on forward, and we'll switch sides. Bend one knee, not quite touch the ground, and then lift back up. I'm just gonna say everybody is moving together, even though maybe you can't see each other doing it. You're all doing it together and it's great. And reach those arms up overhead. A little bit of shoulder stretch. You can either just pause here and do both sides, or you can get deeper into it. You switch corners.
I know. I had tech to deal with.
Oh, that was fixed. And the other side, if you're doing one at a time. Lower those hands down to the ground, extend your front leg, flex your toes on back, and then play with that internal and external rotation. And ease back. Tuck that back toe, see if you can lift the knee up off the ground. And take a big step forward. Great.
Good?
Yeah.
All right.
As always, too, as Liv said earlier, if your body has any specific needs, like you need to get more into your wrists, or your hips, or your hamstrings, do that for yourself.
Yeah. And that's throughout the practice. One of the things that I will often need for myself is just wrist work throughout the practice. And so throughout the practice between reps, I'll often just roll out my wrists. What we're going to start with is a little bit of partner work where we're going to walk the plank. We're going to do a little bit of leg circles when we get to the ankles of the flyer and base. And then we will go and do a little bit of range motion in star. So we'll start off in our front plank. We'll take a reverse hand-to-hand grip. How's our framing? Looking good. And together we're going to communicate how we're going to have a flyer lift one hip. And so flyer will be able to press down into one arm, lift the hip. We're going to walk middle of the thigh, middle of the thigh. We're going to skip the knee, go to the shin, and then to the ankles. When we get to the ankles, flyer is going to lead by going out wide, coming into a tuck position, and then extending back out straight. And we'll do that a few times. As a base, I'm following the flyer here, making sure that I have a nice foundation line with my arms for the flyer to be able to find my shoulders through the hand grip connection. From there, we'll walk back to plank. And we either can make a hand-to-hand grip shift and rotate the star, or we can come down, walk around, and come into a star position, shoulders and feet, looking to have the shoulders back by the base's heel so that the toes at the base are free in the front side of the body. From there, flyer is going to bring one shin to foot, and then we're going to attempt to bring the other foot to the ground. And so I am extending at the shoulder as flyer touches the ground, and then we're going to reverse that. So flyer presses into the shin as the base extends the shin while tucking the shoulder underneath the hips back to extension, and then I take that free foot, and we're going to see if we can just touch feet on the back side, behind, and we'll go through that range of motion a couple of times on both sides. Trying to get the flyer to touch the ground, may or may not happen, but moving in that general direction. And then we can switch sides. So that's what we want to do first, is walk the plank, find those rotations, transition up to star, make a shin to foot connection, make a reverse foot to foot connection on the opposite side, and we'll play with that on both sides. If you're working without a spotter and that feels like it is not a stable thing for you to do, we want you to make wise decisions through communication and find modifications that are through a smaller range of motion that are going to be able to maintain stable and that feeling of safety within your partners. If one of you feels that that is not something that is comfortable for you, both people please abide by the person who feels uncomfortable with that and don't progress and push to a point where injury is going to become part of the equation. Sound good? All right, give it a shot in 3, 2, 1. Everyone looks nice and visible. So Chris and Diego, if you can, when you're going wide with that ankle to foot connection, rather than going wide and then back, see if you can go wide into the tuck and then from the tuck extend back out straight. Yeah. So from the tuck, don't go straddle, from the tuck, straight. You go wide to get into the tuck. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Find that tuck. Bring the knees in, and then extend out straight from there. And then go wide again from there. So it makes a circle. Great. And in general, you're this half, you're this half. And the bottom row is a free for all. Still wish I could rearrange the grid. No, right? Right. Again, if you're working through any variations of this that feel like you would like more clarification, please let us know. We're happy to give you modifications or an eyeball for refinement.
Nice being Alex. Usually B and Alex are inside and B is adjusting for the ceiling.
That's right. Yeah, he gets to get full extension today. I just want to move into Kelly and Eric's space. It's so pretty.
So
Looks like Acro.
Yeah. 'Cause course, I'd have to live in Baltimore. I lost us. Oh, because someone's trying to call me. Yeah, I have that computer right now. No, it's Israel calling me. As if he doesn't follow my schedule. Come on. How about I do like this stuff? All right, give it your last moment. Well, come on in. Do this first. No, I'd like to base it. All right, come on in.
Chris, you have to get on this thing.
Oh, okay, give me one. Okay, that's fine. I'm ready now.
So ready.
Well, this video, I am not going to cut out all of the demo time. It's just going to be a straight long video. When I was doing edits, we would do the 3, 2, 1 clap, which was my cue when I was editing to know that's where I make the first cut. And when I see it's bounce, that's when I knew to make the second cut for the demos. So we're just already Pavlovian in our responses to these things, and that's just how we're probably going to continue it. So you can laugh with us as you desire. For anyone that is looking at a grid view, I have highlighted our camera, and so if you go to a highlighted view, you'll see that. So you can control if you're looking at a grid or a highlighted, and just want to encourage people to do what works for them. But probably the highlighted video is the one to watch if you want to see the details of the demonstrations. Any questions in that first round? Excellent. One of the things that we want to focus on next is this idea of communication between base flyer when we sometimes get into positions that we don't know which way we're supposed to go. Sometimes we will find ourselves into an inversion, and then we're asking the flyer to rotate one direction or another, and the flyer's like, I don't know what you're talking about, because my body's going in a number of directions at the same time, and it's difficult to figure it out, where bases have a much better perspective because we're looking at it. And so we want to find techniques that we can use to help communicate to our flyers which way we're seeking to go. And flyers, this is also a technique that we can communicate to our bases when we're saying, hey, make this movement in this position. The techniques will be the same, but in this particular moment, we're going to be looking at it from base to flyer communication, initially at least. What we're going to seek to do. Is come into star. And in star, we're going to use all 4 points of contact. We're going to use the hand-to-hand and the shoulder-to-foot to communicate which way we want to rotate. So the legs can communicate some, but one thing that's really powerful is that the wrists can communicate a lot as well. Simply turning the wrists will help let the flyer know which way to rotate the hips, and even exaggerate that a little bit. See if we can really rotate those hips as we're making these movements. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take one foot out of the equation, and we're going to look to do the same thing. Rotate, and then we'll bring the foot back in for the second way, and we'll rotate in the other direction. So that's, and then do we have another range of motion? No, let's do just that, and then I'm going to have you and Chris demo the taps. And so once we have that practiced, and give it a couple of tries, and Emily, did you do that with legs together? Mm-hmm. And so flyers, you can do this with your legs together or in an open straddle. We want to avoid a piked straddle. We want to see either an open straddle or legs together, ideally. If you have height constraints in the place that you're in or stability concerns, please add the straddle as you need, but we do want to start to work away from that straddle as soon as it is comfortable. And then once we have that, we're going to see if we can combine that with a little bit more range of motion, and we're going to be looking to tap 3 specific places on the flyer's leg with the base's foot. We're going to seek to touch the knee, the middle of the thigh, and then all the way at the hip, and see that we can identify these 3 individual landmarks. And I'm gonna probably say head on.
Sure.
And then move slightly away. You're a little bit out of frame. Excellent.
All right.
And so there's the knee tap, and then the mid-thigh tap, and then all the way to the hip. And so as this happens, what we want to do is we want to look at how we can use the wrists to help rotate a little bit more as we're moving. You know, if we're touching the knee, it's pretty straight down. If we're touching the hip, it's a pretty significant rotation. And if we're touching the mid-thigh, it's probably going to be somewhere in between. And so look at how we'll show the demo again, and look at how we can use the rotation as a part of that communication as we're moving to these three different positions. And then also, flyers, I want you to really observe how Emily is using the bend of the knee to help control where this is over the center of the base. So if the leg starts to extend out too much, it can take our center off of the foundation. And so please don't feel that the legs have to be straight for this. All right, so
Knee.
touching at the knee, relatively straight, a slight rotation to get to the middle of the thigh. And then even more rotation with the wrists and the hips to get to the hip itself. And so those three things we're trying to seek. And one of the reasons that we really want to emphasize this is that in certain rotations, we have the flyer's head in an inversion moving off the center point of the base. Center point of the base being between the shoulders and the hips. And anything that starts to move off to the side of that is where there's greater potential for injury of the flyer if they do come down. And so we want to develop some strategies for how we're going to navigate that if we're starting to move in that direction. This one, if it does move off the center of the base as we're moving to the hip, it should only be a little bit, but we want to do the knee and the mid-thigh as ideas of how it is moving from the center and then moving off of center, and doing it in a way, particularly as Emily is bending that knee and helping keep it over the center of the base and being able to attach on if there was something that lost stability. And so we want everyone to give that a try and see that we can get to the hip in a way that doesn't feel like the flyer is about to face plant onto the ground. Reasonable request, right, flyers?
You may have noticed that I'm touching Emily with the heel of my foot rather than toes of my foot. That's intentional. It's going to be easier because we've got more length in our legs and toes, but we're getting a little more range of motion if we touch with the heel. That's what we're going for in this exercise.
Yeah. Any questions? Groovy. All right, give it a shot in 3, 2, 1.
Nicole and Brent, that looks wonderful. That's smooth.
Josh and Carmel, go ahead and keep the elbows bent of the flyer. You'll just have a little more stability throughout the range of motion, and see if you can isolate just the wrists to induce that turn in the flyer.
Yeah, Danielle, see if you can even bring that leg further across so that it's not coming straight down the midline. Let your torso twist. Better. And again, please let us know if you have questions, cover up your camera. And I just want everyone to take this moment and also recognize that if you haven't practiced in the last month or few weeks, it's gonna have some stumbles. Let it be okay. We were training this a few days ago and stumbling all over the place. Of course, now we're flawlessly refined, but not really. Not yet. Give this just another moment. Yeah, Brett? Yeah, absolutely. Face me. Your arms more extended. Is that good? Do you want to see it again? Just keep making that loop as many times as you want to see it, Brett.
I'm just struggling with the reach for the hip when I go in front of the body instead of behind the arm. Like if I go behind the body, I can get to the hip, but if I go in front of the body, I can't reach the hip.
It is more difficult in the front of the body. As a flyer, I have the ability to do a little bit of compression here to help bring that hip a little bit lower, but a lot of it is really in the base's leg and how much of a bend they have and how much of an extension they have on the other side. And it's a range of motion that takes some time to develop. And so we're working to get there. If we're not there yet, it's going to be some practice, but we're also happy to take a look at your technique and see if there's anything that we can show. Yeah, let's see it. Yeah, Eric, Kelly. If you unmute yourselves, we'll listen.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you're lowering the flyer, do you advise for flyers' elbows to drop towards their ribs as a method to lower and bases keep their arms more supportive, or do you advocate for the flyer to keep shape and the base to lower their arms?
Okay, 1 second. Brent, that looked great. So yeah, I thought that was very successful. And Eric, the important thing is that we have the ability for flyers to maintain power in their arms. And so there's not one method to get there. When we were going through it, I asked Chris to have his arms more extended so that I can maintain that pressure. I felt that as the elbows bent on the base, I didn't have as much control over of like compressing my body to bring that hip low enough to the base. But it's not the only method to get there. Really, it's about making sure that Kelly in this moment has power in their arms so that this doesn't feel like it's going to just be an object being moved.
Kelly always has power in her arms.
Yeah, no shit. But Kelly, one day, me and you, toe to toe, fireball, it's gonna happen. And I will lose to you. All right, any other questions? Yeah, Nicole?
Do I hold it? Okay. I just wanted to say it was actually the compression, the hip compression. As a flyer, I was actually trying to open it to like give them that pocket, right? And that compression actually helped a lot for us. Thanks.
Excellent. Yeah. Excellent. Nah, thank you for that. I'm gonna make sure that that is a cue that I use in the future. Any others? Great. Yeah, let's do that. One of the foundational things for anyone that has done any amount of practice with me knows that corkscrews are a foundational transition that I find a lot of value in that are translatable to almost everything that we do. For those of you that have heard this spiel before, you're gonna, I'm gonna go through it again. For those of you that have not, it's gonna be a lot of data. Oh, hold on. All right, let's come on in. For those of us that haven't.
You haven't done this, that's why.
Yes. As I look around the room, I see some people are still out there practicing. So yeah, now that everyone has come in, are there any other questions? All right, I do want to remind you, whether you've paid money or if you're here as a guest, I don't care, everyone is the same at this point. And if anyone has questions, please know that this is an educational environment that we want to encourage people to ask questions. So, as brave as you feel to raise your hand and ask them, we desire everyone to get the most out of this. And so please don't be shy to ask questions. Yes, Ivan.
So if you have never successfully gotten into a star without someone's assistance, what is a good way to practice this safely?
Getting into star, there's a lot of ways to get into it. If jumping in it doesn't feel appropriate, jumping is a whole calibration in it of itself. But a back plank or a straddle bat are good ways to get into it. So really there's a number of ways. We're about to get into it from a front plank. But if this also doesn't feel like it's right for you to rotate into it, and it feels more appropriate to step linear into it rather than through a rotation, we invite you to modify this appropriately for you, safety being the guiding principle. Longevity.
That's next, because that's exactly what I couldn't remember how to do. I remember it working though.
Excellent. Kevin, Natalia?
How do you think about the weight in the base and flyer's hands with twisting? Like, it feels like if there's no weight in the hands, that the twisting doesn't affect the body as much.
Okay. I'd say that those are not necessarily universals. I think that there's a lot of methods that we can use to communicate what we need or desire from our partners. And so the rotation is one of them, but verbals also work. And so what I often do is I just squeeze a hand and I say this hip forward, this hip back. And then that also can help communicate which way it is. I personally don't like a lot of weight in the arms when I'm doing this. But if you find that weighting the arms a little bit helps that communication, weight the arms a bit. If you weight the arms too much, you're going to fatigue in the arms quicker than we will in the legs. And so I caution about too much weight in the arms just for, the longevity of a multi-hour practice. That's, I guess, what I think about it. Any other questions? Okay, groovy. So moving from a front plank into a star through the corkscrew rotation, what we want to do is we want to establish some parts of the foot that are going to be beneficial for different parts or for different actions. And so essentially at the bottom of a foot, I got to find my screen. Okay, yeah. The heel, the space right above the heel, the ridge at the ball of the foot, and the toes all have kind of different functions. And so if I'm trying to get the most out of my foot, I'm trying to generally have the weight at this part of the foot, because most transitions that we do rotate this way on the foot. Every once in a while we rotate this way on the foot and I could change that answer, but just for generally speaking, this is the part that I want to have the weight. And so in this moment, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to extend through the heel in our front plank and rotate from there so that we still have the most amount of foot available for the next part of the transition. And it's not necessarily going to be the easiest thing to see through the screen, but we do want you to pay some attention to that. And each step that we make as we're making a transition and moving to a different body part of our partner, we want to allow the most amount of transition for the next part through an available surface contact. So, you want a base? Sure. I'm gonna apply this one. All right. From our front plank, we're going to take a hand-to-hand grip. And we're going to change our hand-to-hand grip only so that we can show the feet. I lied. Let's go just a little bit of an angle here. Then we can see the feet. Excellent, excellent, excellent. So let's go this way. So go backwards for a second, Chris. So I want you to exaggerate this, Chris. I want you to extend through the heel and peel the toes back. And from there, rotate at the heel and then bend the knee to stack my hips. From there, the foot can go up the side of my body to the shoulder. And rather than going at the toes, we're going to wait and really get it at the heels. And I, as a flyer, can push off of the arms to create a little bit more space in the shoulder to foot connection. And then the base will bend the knee until the hips are stacked over the shoulders through the spine, and we press up through that stack. When we get there, the second foot will come to the shoulder. And now, base and flyers can help that communication of the rotation. And I'm going to, as a flyer, lead this part of the rotation by rotating my hips, and the base can then trace down the side of the body to the hip. We press through this top arm to free the foot from the shoulder. The base will trace down, bend the knee until they reach the second hip, and then rotate back to our front plank position. And so again, this is something that if you've studied with me for any period of time, you've done this 1,000 times, you've heard this 1,000 times. So we'll show it in a little bit more of a natural pacing. And so it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And that's essentially what we're looking for, is to see if we can make this connection where in the most ideal world, the base and flyer never lose contact with all 4 points the entire time, where the base can trace up the side of the body, rotate around the back side of the shoulder, rotate across the belt line, and get it so that we are maintaining stability and connection for communication purposes throughout this transition. With that, we all have our own methods to do it, but let's see how cleanly it can be executed. Any questions? All right, a corkscrew, a phenomenal warm-up calibration. 3, 2, 1. Yeah. Don't worry, Alex, no one saw that. Super clean, John and Tamara. Good.
Chris and Haley, if you need any words as you go through this, let us know. We're here.
Ivan and Bo, it can often be a little more than just a pivot of the base's foot. If you move around towards the flyer's backside a little bit with a bit of a slide of the foot, the flyer has more of a support to roll into.
Good. Haley and Chris. I don't know if they can either. Looks not, but I'm watching the hyperextension of that wrist. I want Haley to, yeah. Haley, Chris, can you hear me? Okay. Haley, I want you to, and you're already working on it, but between the two of you, I really want Haley to manage the arms more. And I want the hyperextension to come out of your wrists, Haley. So I want you to take a look in these moments, and I want you to modify Chris's arms so that your wrists aren't being hyperextended, and I think it's going to actually help stabilize if you can feel your shoulders. Cool. Yeah, Ivan?
So I have forgotten the first part. So we were at the on the front balance. You have the hands. The one foot you put it like doing a side star, and then do you move the other foot across? Or it feels like there's no way I could possibly get my foot to their shoulder.
Oh, perfect. Okay, so what we have is, and I'm going to just put you in the category of human and say this is typically what happens, and then you can let me know if it's something different. But what we generally have happen is that we're in this position, we've moved to this position, and now that shoulder is all the way over there, and how am I supposed to bring my foot there, right? Is that about what we're dealing with?
Yep, I figured out the problem. I was using the wrong foot.
Oh, okay. But generally in this position here, this leg that's balancing, you take it and you rotate it so that your flyer moves over you, and then you can reach the shoulder easier, rather than having to get across.
That makes way more sense. It would help if I used the right foot, and the twist would make it significantly easier as well.
Details, details, details. We'll give this probably another 45 seconds to a minute.
Yeah, really nice. Bringing that arm more into its center made all the difference.
Nice work, Kevin and Laura.
Ivan and Bo, that looked like really good attempts. If you're able to work together to keep the wrists a little more over the center of the base, under the center of the flyer, that's going to help some.
All right, give it your last moment and come on in.
Chris and Diego, that was beautiful.
It really was. I was just watching that too. Really smooth. Yeah. Very fluid. Nice, nice, nice. Don't worry, Alex. Everyone saw that. All right. Come on in. Okay, let's see. Any questions? One of the things that I want to point out in this moment is that a corkscrew, much like many of the things that we're about to practice, though we have two arms connected, one of them is usually going to be much more significant than the other. And it's easy to overuse the one that is less significant. And so if we start to find that there's arm challenges and struggles in any of these transitions, take a moment and pause and ask yourselves and ask each other, which arm here actually matters less? And can we put less emphasis on it and see if that can make this transition easier? There's a number of attempts in that last round that we were observing that looked like there was a lot of tension in one of the arms that was hindering some of the rotation. And so we want to really always be going through that evaluative process of like, what is actually balancing and supporting, and what is just there for either aesthetics or for the next piece or just to help a little bit of steering, but is not necessarily weight bearing, and are we putting too much tension into it? And so please, as you're going through these next number of rounds, be asking that question. In a corkscrew, it's not one arm the entire time. Through one half of the transition, it's one arm, and then when we hit start, it becomes the other arm that is more important. And so look for it as something that does change as we move through different positions. Yeah, Kristen Porkchop.
I think they're just adjusting their camera.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Gotcha.
Sorry, I'm having camera stability issues. Just ignore me.
Yeah.
Excellent, excellent. All right. And any questions? Where are we moving to next? Yeah, let's do a shawarma. A show of hands. How many thumbs up here? How many people know what a rotisserie is? Excellent, excellent, excellent. So we're going to essentially do a corkscrew, but we're going to do it with 2 arms, and it's going to be with both arms staying connected almost throughout the entire rotation, except for the moments that we re-grip. It's going to, aside from that, feel very much like a corkscrew, or sorry, like a rotisserie, but we're intentionally trying to do this with 2 arms. Y'all want to?
Yeah, right. We just want to come down from start first. Get into it. Let's go to start real quick. Figure out which side start we need to get to. So, okay.
All right. So we're going to start in an outside start. For those of us that are not familiar with the vocabulary, because reverse outside start. Because the flyer's torso is not between the base's legs, but on the outside of the base's legs, this is an outside start, and because the flyer and base are not facing each other, it's a reverse. So this reverse outside star is our starting position. There are many ways to get into it. We take a hand-to-hand grip.
Yeah, if she were in star, this would be a hand-to-hand grip right here.
Stepping around the backside of the flyer, we're going to step toward the piriformis and then continue to the next, and just keep going. Do you have something you want to say? You're moving to this next.
Oh, I see. We're doing both.
Yes. We're going to keep going.
Okay.
And so one of the things that is key here is I want everyone to watch how Chris takes this next step and doesn't touch with the toes, but touches with the heel at the piriformis. And that makes it so that when this next rotation happens, there's all this foot still available and we're not at the edges of the toes. The edges of the toes are generally quite uncomfortable for flyers, and so we want to avoid them by making sure that each step we take is connecting with the heel first and rotating toward the toes.
And the way I'm achieving that is I'm using this leg to bend quite a bit so I can get all the way to the piriformis. A lot of times what we see with this is the base doesn't bend deeply enough. We start rotating onto the foot, and then we run out of foot. And so the flyer has to come down.
Or that both legs bend rather than just one leg bends, and we end up with a net zero gain trying to get to that position. So we want to move the legs independently of each other and get a good hip width bend in the base's leg to reach the next position.
So we're going to take that hand-to-hand grip over the top here. I pause in this position of the flyer. I wait for Chris to bend his knee, and I don't start to rotate my body until I feel his heel, my piriformis. Then I roll toward it slowly until I feel the full connection of the foot.
Cool.
We haven't talked much about that second part yet. But it's a lot of it's the same principle. I'm bending my right leg. I'm keeping that foot soft because this can be hippy if that's a hard foot that's connecting with the hip. And then again, now I'm bending my left leg, getting all the way to the hip, and rolling around with it.
Make sense? All right. Any questions? Josh, yeah, what you got?
So this is not rotisserie, right? This is like the opposite leg rotisserie kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, and rotisserie is one of those things that, you know, was developed in a very specific set of poses, but really has just kind of become a verb, that it is any kind of that role. And so there are a number of ways to get through that rotisserie thing. One of the distinguishing things about this particular one is that 2 hands are used the whole time rather than just one. And the 2 hands are going to be useful for some of the things that we're going to do from it. And so we want everyone to practice that. Cool. Any other questions? Rad. All right, let's see yours in 3, 2, 1.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
this. I think it's cool.
We watch our screen and see if it actually is darker. But
It's clear like that.
okay. It's a little more washed out. I think it's fine. I don't mean the projector. I mean ours. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fine.
Oh, I can see that's.
Oh, yeah.
That's the recording.
Chris and Pork Chop, that first hand grip that you had was correct. Chris's watch wants to be facing away. Yep. Nice job.
All right. After you've gotten a few good rotations, we do want to have some preservation of the hips. So don't burn them out yet. We'll get there. And then Matt and Athena, I want you to let me know if I've named this thing wrong, but is this the shawarma roll? I don't know if you know either, but you're the most likely to know. Maybe Jay and Danielle, but maybe. I know, if Nadav and Paul were here, we'd know.
Nick?
Yeah, Nick.
Is there a little bit of weight in the hands as we're going from the reverse outside star roll?
Yeah, there's a little bit. I think a little bit is the right word to use. Yeah.
Yeah, something, Nick and Tori, that I find helpful is it's easy to set up with a nice amount of stability in hands just in that starting pose, that reverse outside star. To me, I find it useful to attempt to keep a consistent amount of pressure throughout the entire transition. And that's what allows Emily and I to really very slowly and consistently, perform that transition at a kind of even tempo all the way through. And it's because our hand pressure is the same throughout.
It's in the,
Imagine your eyes trying
it may have to be.
Oh, am I dark?
Just I want to make it so that it's not like weirdly uplit, but I do want it to be so that we're as illuminated as possible.
Okay. Oh, you can't buy it. Where's those?
Yeah.
All right. Make your last attempt and come on in. All right, all right, all right. Any questions there? Come on in.
It's really about the hands.
There's a quad workout.
And the like glute massage.
Yeah. I like your method, Bo. All right, any questions there? Okay. This next transition that we're going to do is one where we really want to get it as smooth as possible, but this does have a high risk of chafe. And so flyers, this is our job as flyers to communicate to bases whether they are doing this well or not. Bases are not going to feel it nearly with the same level of sensitivity that flyers feel. So flyers, this is our role. We help our bases get better by letting them know when their form is shit.
in constructive terms.
Yes, of course, kindly, your form is shit.
But people want to be needed.
So we're going to start off in a position called outside start. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the inner arch of my second foot and I'm going to bring it really close to my first foot, but on the back side, and I'm going to use that foot to rotate so that I can get to this position where I am heels in toward each other and toes away from each other and make a transition to the second one. We start off with the top arm gripped in a hand-to-hand grip. The foot comes in, starts the rotation. My second hand, my elbow is on the ground and giving support for the flyer to be able to push down into that. As we're shifting around, we abandon the first hand grip, replacing it with the second hand grip. The foot takes, rotates. I'm buoyant in my knees here so that I can extend up through one, abandoning the other. And if I do it well, the flyer shouldn't know that the switch happens. It just replaces one with the other. Kind of similar to that idea of the Indiana Jones replacing the idol for a bag of sand trick. Hopefully better than was executed in the movie so that no boulders come down and destroy us because we didn't do it well. Any questions? Yeah, Nicole, Brent?
So the first hand disconnects as soon as the second hand connects.
Allow there to be some wiggle there. If there's a little bit of redundancy in it, just fine. The important thing to make this smooth would be to make sure that we're only pushing and not letting the grip hold on too long. So we allow for platform to exist as long as it's needed. And Brent, this is really for you as a base. Is like, I have this and I'm never going to take it away from the flyer. The flyer will let it go when they feel stable enough to transition to the next piece. So I'm going to maintain this around the back. I'm going to bring this around the front. And I'm going to let them both be there. And I'm just not going to try to hold on to one or pull to let go of the first one. You just create the support. Any other questions? Yeah, absolutely, pork chop. Yeah, all right, so we'll show it again, and then we'll let you all at it. Is that angle good, though? Excellent. I'm gonna just go a little bit lower. All right, so from there, make the foot connection, and then transition off. Let's show one from the back side. Yeah. Well, thank you. So I use the foot to help the steer, make the connection, release the first, extend through the leg. In bases, we want to make sure that as we're extending through the leg, we don't extend through the blade side, we are extending through the center of the foot. And still, I'm thinking that this is the area that I'm pushing through. I'm trying to not get this too close to the toes. I always want the toes available for the next transition. Any other questions? Are you diagnosing or you have something to add?
I can't see people's hand instructions, but the second hand catch,
yes.
It's the base is catching this way rather than.
Yes. That's a really crucial point. Is to make sure that this is done with our hand externally rotated bases, not what might typically or even feel symmetrical to the first one. While we are letting go with this one, we're not getting a symmetrical grip. We are flipping the second hand grip. Thank you for calling that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So make sure that bases, when you're reaching for the second hand, your hand is externally rotated. External rotation would be that your palm is facing you and your thumb is facing out.
Yeah, that's it, Brent. You're doing it right now. Great.
All right, give it a shot. 3, 2, 1. And again, flyers, it is our job to communicate the quality of our base's feet. So let us know if we need to make modifications and make that more comfortable.
Cassie and Ben, can you move your mat a little closer to the stairs?
And Ivan, yeah, what's up? Ivan, go.
Which arm, which leg for starting?
So it's going to be same side arm, same side leg.
Okay,
so
cool.
if I'm balancing with the right leg, it's going to start with the right arm. And as we transition to the left leg, we transition to the left arm.
Thank you, Cassie. Yeah, Ivan.
For starting, which hip of the flyers am I on? I feel like she's in a front star and not a reverse.
Correct. You'll be facing each other, and the torso will be on the outside of the legs, not between your legs.
Okay.
I did. There is actually one thing that that flyers can either accept or resist, and we want flyers to resist with that, so that it becomes a function, right? If I push on your leg and you give, then it doesn't. It loses its efficiency, and so if you resist back on it a little bit, then we can use that to really help rotate. Yeah. Yeah, pork chop. And Kevin and Laura, I see you. And yeah, pork chop will watch you. Kevin and Laura, give us 1 second. We will show that demo again. Yep. Chris and pork chop, that you have the basic moves. Pork chop, you're going to keep that pillow away so that you don't break your ankle on it, correct? And then let's see. Chris, as it's coming around to the second arm, you can keep that elbow low to the ground. You don't need to extend it. You can just use your forearm to bring it into alignment rather than your shoulder and upper arm. And did I see pulling?
When we had the elbow on the ground, I feel like I end up very chest down.
Oh, yes, that's what it was. Chris, this whole thing you can do with your legs bent a little bit more so that we don't run out of arms to dip the torso down. Thank you, pork chop. That was what I wanted to communicate. And then Kevin, Laura, yeah, we'll show this demo again. So I'm going to be pushing on the backside of the leg to help the rotation. We get to this moment here where we have all 4 points connected. I'm going to keep the legs nice and low and buoyant for that transition. You can keep on doing this sign if you want to keep seeing it again and again. We'll keep showing it. Just let us know.
Yeah, I'm seeing it. Yeah, go ahead and do it again. Josh and Carmel. I see you, Josh. I see you, Carmel.
I'm low in the knees. I'm extending through the arm. My elbow's on the ground. And then extend up through the leg. Take that vitamin I. Yeah, I in, and then Nicole and Brent.
What is your hand position for the reverse?
For the second grip,
For the first, well, I guess both.
so I start off with my hand like this. I bring it around the backside, and then I pick it up with the opposite.
So at any point, do you end up with a weird thumb to thumb? Oh, I guess that's normal.
All hand-to-hand grips are going to be thumb to thumb. Actually, so are reverse hand-to-hand grips. So yeah, thumb to thumb is fine. We want to make sure that we're not holding on to just the thumb. We do want to make sure that we open up across the entire hand.
Okay, I think I used the wrong hand at some point because there was no connection.
Gotcha. For this one, it will always be right arm to right arm and left arm to left arm. And all hand-to-hand grips will be that. And then, yeah, Nicole and Brent.
We're having an issue where the second foot ends up being quite a bit low. Or not quite a bit. It looks like it's kind of near where you guys are at, but how do you make that smoother transitions where it actually ends up in the hip spot and not on my butt?
You know, there's a little bit of finagle that needs to go on there. So as a base, I'm getting my feet to touch each other and not letting a gap exist. And then keeping the legs buoyant and low means that I can extend up and have a little bit of movement during the extension. And then flyers can give a little bit of a straddle to shove the foot a little bit higher as it's going. And so if it gets a little bit low, if you were to raise your leg, it's going to slide towards your knee, but if you lower your leg, it slides toward the hip. And so you can adjust and make it just so that you, even if you need to bend the knee a little bit, you can kind of like get it in there if it's not there yet. Refinement takes forever. And then Carmel.
Maybe you can watch us. We're a little bit confused on like which hand goes with which hand and all of that.
Absolutely, and you can always point to your eye if you just want us to watch you also, but we're watching. Okay, great. So easy is that y'all are using a reverse hand-to-hand grip, and we want you to shift to a hand-to-hand grip. Josh and Carmel. It's going to be right hand to right hand and left hand to left hand. There you go. And release one of those hands. Yeah, that was a good choice. No, it wasn't. I lied. The arms were crossed. You had a 50-50 shot. Try the other one. And we'll give this just another 45 seconds or so. Yeah. Good. In that last moment, Josh, get that elbow to the ground so that the shoulders of Carmel don't go too high. Yep. But the hand position, you're getting it. It's just a spaghetti of limbs.
Spaghetti of limbs. Oh.
Matt and Rachel. Or are you just adjusting?
Tori and Nick.
You have a question, Nick, Tori, Matt, Rachel?
Yeah, we're getting through it. I just wondered if you could give any tips for when we switching the feet, when I end up in the reverse outside star. It's just so much in my heel. I mean, it's working, but it's just too much in my heel consistently.
Okay, yeah, let's take a look. But I mean, the simple answer will be move it more towards your toes. But yes, let's take a look. And then we can all start to come on in. Excellent. That looked pretty good. Tori, also, you do have some control over how much heel versus toe you're going to receive by where your top hip is. If you want more toes, rotate that top hip slightly back, and you're going to feel toes come into the equation more.
Kevin and Laura, that's looking pretty good. One thing you can do to make Laura feel, the flyer feel more supported is the base. As this arm is transitioning around, in fact, leave the slides on the end. The other one, the way we're doing it there. So I just want to do this from the side because I want to show the kind of support that I can give to Emily just a little bit as she's all the way back here. Like I'm not even transitioning into anything yet, but if you look at this line right here, there's a straight line between her shoulder through our wrists to my shoulder. This is, I can even make her wobble because there's a lot of support here. Having support here actually makes it so that this connection is lighter and makes it easier to transfer. Even though we're just hanging out here, this is kind of like reverse front planking. That's a little bit what it feels like with this hand connection. It's light enough, there's enough weight in the arms that the foot is able to slide more easily because we've reduced the amount of weight in that connection point. So if you're having trouble with this transition, think about trying to hit that paused place that Emily and I just showed, where Emily's head is directly behind me, but she's still feeling very supported through that arm-to-arm connection, that single arm connection.
All right. Any other questions? Ruby. Almost, but let's get through a good chunk of it.
Okay.
All right. So basically, we've got all these pieces, and we have almost everything we need, but we have enough to start to connect some of these pieces together. And what we're going to be working toward is this piece that that I wrote a number of years ago with a partner of mine named Megan, who is just really brilliant for these types of movements. And so this one's called The Bastard's Brother. It kind of is, it's a piece that we had worked on for a while that we called The Tricky Bastard because it was kind of strange and tricky. And we worked on it for a while. It was fun. And then all of a sudden one day we picked it up and we were like, what was interesting about that? I don't really think this is fun anymore. And we took a piece of it that we really liked and we created this piece from it. And since it's, relative to the Tricky Bastard, we've just called it The Bastard's Brother. It's like a relative of the Tricky Bastard. It's unique in the work that I've developed because most of the work that I've developed is cyclical in a single direction. It moves in a bunch of ways, but it always moves in one direction. And this one does change direction in the middle of the washing machine, which is like really abrupt for most washing machines that switch directions. But somehow this maintains fluidity through it. And so we allowed for it and we kept it. And so let's have fun with it. And then basics, if your hips are up for that.
Fine.
You want to play it?
Next time.
So we're going to start off in a star. And from the star, we're going to step down to the hip like we did in our corkscrew. But from there, we're going to take and we're going to do that shawarma roll piece around the back. And then we're going to combine that with the thing that we just did to the outside star. And then that's it for now. So we want to find those three pieces now in a row. We go from star toward front plank, but then instead of going to front plank, we're going to change directions and we're going to go backwards through that shawarma into the Bastard's Brother. And we're happy to show that again, but these are the last three things that we've done. Haley, I saw that, we'll show it again. Danielle?
Was that just a regular step down from star to a straight corkscrew, or did you have to turn your foot opposite?
So it's still catching with an externally rotated foot the way we traditionally do. Any other questions? We will show it again. Was the angle good? Okay. Starting in star. Externally rotated foot catches the hip, which lets that foot become neutral as we then are stepping one foot just in front of the next. And then everything we've just done with that sense of softness and buoyancy to switch 2 feet on one hip. If you need to see it again, please give us the sign. We'll show it again and again and again. I see you, Chris and Diego, so we will show it again. And then if you need us to take a look, or if you have any questions, just call us out, but you're welcome to go play with it. In 3, 2, 1, and we'll show it again. You want a base? Sure. You want to fly? I'll fly. Yeah. Rotate down from star toward front plank, around the back for the shawarma, press in through the first hand-to-hand, into the second hand-to-hand as we come around. Want to see it again? Again. Do a little more. Rotating, twisting, connecting, stepping around the back, pressing as we switch the feet to the hip. And again, if you're familiar with any one of those 3 pieces individually, you can always narrow the focus and refine any one of those pieces. We can get 2 pieces together, so don't worry if I can get all 3. Can I get even one of them really smooth? Can I get the second one smooth? Can I combine 2 of them together? And then we can combine more and more things together. And again, for those of us that are newer in our practice, or those of us that are going to get tired or fatigued or chafed too soon, this video is something that you have access to for a while, so you can train it throughout the week and work on different pieces each time you're working on it.
Is that a video of you doing it?
Yeah, so who's in that video? Who's the bass?
That's me a la 2016 when we were trying to figure out this crazy stuff.
So do you see what you're doing wrong in the video?
Probably.
So when you step down from star, you're with an internally rotated foot rather than an externally rotated foot. Yeah.
We were just trying to make it really hard.
Yes. Yeah. Well, you know, some people really like that hard blade edge of the foot in the hip, and so go for it.
Evan, Sarah, I just want to say I watched your last 2 attempts. They both looked really good.
First time I'm gonna send a video through a video.
Yeah.
Video section.
Yeah. It's looking really good, everyone.
Everybody's moving really nice and slowly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, Carmel, eyes on you. All right, let's try that again, Josh Carmel. So we want to get to the other hip, not that hip. It's not the same side hip, it's going to go across to the other side. And Josh, when you reach that hip, externally rotated foot. That's internally rotated. I want it externally rotated.
Little break.
Yeah, absolutely. Layer by layer, no rush. All right, let's give it your last attempt and come on in. We want to show one last piece, and then you're gonna have one more round to try all of it together. However much of it we get does not matter, but that's what we're gonna allot from a time management standpoint. And then you have an entire lifetime at least to refine it. So come on in, come on in, come on in.
Hand clapping every time.
Oh,
I'm still learning.
I changed. You've been with me long enough that you know that I'm inconsistent.
It's consistent, inconsistent.
Yes, sometimes I say 1, 2, 3.
Sometimes we word.
Yeah.
Like,
Sometimes we.
have you ever seen like cats use the
I've seen dogs do that. And you're like, gross! Now I gotta burn the carpet. All right, any questions?
Danielle trying to drink water.
Yeah, B.
Sorry, it just takes a minute to unmute. We were noticing that going from the first position to the second, do you change your hand grip in that? I guess I just didn't see that happen.
Like coming down from star, do you have to switch your grip or
To
not?
do that shawarma?
No.
I don't think so. Let me verify through practice, but my brain says no. Yeah, I'm gonna stick with no. The only grip switch we do is just in that last part where we just are really only re-gripping one hand even. Yeah, it's magic. We found all of the rotation in that grip that we can maintain throughout all of those positions. The question is we gotta get back to star. And so if we gotta get back to star, do we get to keep that grip or does it switch in that last moment before the last step? I'm gonna guess it switches, but that's only because eventually we have to run out of rotation in the arm, or do we not?
I feel like it doesn't.
Holy crap, that would be so wild.
I'm not sure.
If we've just discovered that this whole thing has one hand that goes through the entire cycle again and again and again that never regrips, that will blow my mind a bit. All right, we're gonna figure that out. Any questions before we move on? All right, let's take a look at it. So we're in the strange position and we're gonna try to get back to a star. The biggest challenge of this is that most bases tend to have more of an external rotation than an internal rotation. And in this last piece, we're gonna be internally rotating to get back to that star position. I think, again, I'm speaking before my brain is actually, or before my body is doing it. And so in that moment, we want to figure out how we can make that comfortable for the flyer and not feel like the base is going to rip their hip out of socket. These are, basic necessities that we desire in this practice. Yeah, I just would like to feel like everything stays in socket while I practice. It's a personal thing. Y'all can choose as you desire if you would like to keep joints in socket, but please, at least in this environment, keep joints in sockets. You want to base, you want to fly, you want to...
You're already in position.
All right, let's do it. So from star, everything is the same. Stepping back, going into the shawarma, rotating around. We do regrip. And from there, This foot is now internally rotated, and the shoulder is therefore over my torso, and I can bend that knee as I make connection with the shoulder to stack the hips and come back in. The nice thing is I don't even really need to extend. We can rotate right from there and begin again. Do one more after this.
Flyers at this point too, I'm gonna bring my lower ear toward my lower shoulder to create space for the base of the foot. I'm also able to stag my top leg, help bring weight over here.
One second, I gotta get the foot off your shoulder. Excellent, excellent.
Another way I like to view this part is the flyer opening their chest towards the sky, towards the front direction.
That last step is tricky. That's where, you know, the relatives stay connected. And we do want to make sure that in that moment that we don't rotate off the base's foot, because that's where not only is our head and spine vulnerable to injury, but also because our hands are connected and it's kind of our last point of connection, we don't want the wrists to get hyperextended trying to save this. So everything that Emily said about using the legs and making space at the shoulder, flyers, those are things that are really going to help the base out. So use them, but the most important thing about how we use them is how slowly can we use them. Can we do it in a way that doesn't throw the foundation out from under us, but instead maintains stability through slow movement, helping each other out. Make sense? All right. Again, let us know. I see we already have one request to see it again, so we will show that again. But you're welcome to go give this a shot. We're going to give this one more round, and then we're going to let it go. But give it a shot in your 3, 2, 1. And in that last piece, I'm in no rush to get there. We're going to make this connection here. This feels nice and stable through here. We've already calibrated this. And in this last moment, I'm not rushing to get across my base because I can feel the tension in the leg already communicating. Don't move too quickly. I'm going to lose stability.
Right. We have tension throughout our arms. I'm using Lux's frame to help increase my internal rotation so that I have better access to his shoulder.
And he's doing that through getting under me and pushing, not through pulling my arms over center. Cool? And again, this is one of those things where we have a lot of data that's been given, and so if it starts to become just a word jumble, know that you can review this video and listen to it to get those details and refine throughout the week, at least. Knowing me, it will stay up longer because it will take me longer to take it down and create the space again. Nice, Matt and Athena.
I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah, Ivan?
Could you watch us and help figure out what we're not doing? Because I am not in a spot to be able to rotate her.
Absolutely, absolutely. And again, you can always just point at your eyeball in front of the screen and we'll do the same. You've started in a strange position. So if you're trying to do the rotation around the back where the 2 feet are on one hip, you want to start on your other foot, Ivan.
Then Cassie, I see you.
Yeah, so the last bit where we're going back to star, my foot is I think, externally rotated from the swap. And we can establish the hand-to-hand grip, but like, there's not really a lot of like bend or twist that seems possible where we are.
So let's take a look at you also. Can you show us?
Yeah, remuting real quick.
Yep.
Yeah. And Ben and Cassie, I did see your last attempt. I think, Ben, if you work on bringing the supporting leg that's on Cassie's flyer's hip away from you a little bit, and then Cassie, if you allow your shoulder to open up downwards towards Ben, the shoulder was still pretty stacked from that last one, and you couldn't quite reach your shoulder. So those two things in combination, I think will help at least some.
Good, good. Ivan and Bo, don't worry about your left arm. And then the right arm, let's, yeah. So a couple things. Ivan, your right arm, I want you to bend it a little bit so that we get Bo's arm a little bit stronger. And then as you're making this transition, don't let the legs drift toward the face so much. Try to keep it more over the belly.
Cassie, that's looking great. Ben, fantastic. Nailed it. Nice job.
And then Bo, yeah, exactly that. Open up just slightly to the back. That is great, if I'm witnessing what you're miming. Matt and Rachel, so smooth looking. Nice, nice, nice. That is some good rotation you got there.
Chris and Diego, very smooth, very beautiful.
Yeah, Carmel, I got eyes on you. It's looking good, Josh and Carmel. Release that left arm. Yep, yep, yep. Good, good, good. Yep, good use of the ankle and hand. I see. That looked good, Josh and Carmel. And then Tori and Nick. I want you to try to get those arms not at such a diagonal, Nick. The arms that are going way across your body, I want you to try to bring them in a bit and start to rely a little bit less on them. Use your leg more.
Ben and Cassie, on that last attempt, I saw that your elbows, let's see, Ben's left arm, Cassie's right arm, were both straight in the elbows, and therefore the hand connection was way above the base's head towards the camera. See if you can bend those elbows a little bit so the connection point is a little more over Ben's face so that both of you have something to kind of press into.
Nice, Chris and Haley. I saw you work through that one. Awesome.
Kevin, Laura, you okay? Okay, I see smiles. Good. I'd love to see it again if you guys want to show me. Okay, all right.
Yep. Yeah, let's do some of that. That sounds ideal. All right, give it your last attempt and we'll let it rest. Refinement is a lifelong journey.
So profound. That was like a mermaid coming out of the sea or something.
I always thought I'd make a really nice mermaid.
You can still be a mermaid. There's still time.
I'm not a good swimmer.
Merman.
Okay, come on in, come on in, come on in.
Still missing.
Feeling super
it's like just a game to like continue to just change.
I'm gonna go random too.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. It's just gonna be like this. All right. Any final questions on that one? And when I say final questions, I just mean in this moment, you can always, we have an hour-long jam after the class, and then of course, you can always reach out with questions after that. So just in this moment, any final questions? All right. Well, I hope you all enjoyed it. Let's move on. What we want to calibrate next is a reverse star. There are many ways to get into a reverse star. Give me a thumbs up if reverse star is something that you don't know how to get into. Okay, great. So most people here, almost everyone here knows how to get into a reverse star. So I do want everyone to calibrate a reverse star. And during that, we are going to show a few ways to get into a reverse star at the same time that you're just practicing your reverse stars. So if you do want to look, you can stick around and look, but since this is bread and butter for a lot of us and we know how to get into it, go ahead, you can do reverse stars. 3, 2, 1, and reverse star.
1 second.
For getting into a reverse star, there's a number of ways that we can do this. And Ivan and Bo, this is largely for you. So let's look at going from a front plank and like a shin to foot kind of thing, or top side of foot. So we're going to start off in a front plank. I'm going to take to one side a side star, and the second foot is going to come to the shoulder. My heel is going to be right where the clavicle is, so that I know that when we go upside down, we go past the clavicle into the center of the foot. I'm going to have my elbows on the ground, and my hands are going to be well supported. And from there, the flyer can help by pushing into the arms and coming off of the second leg. I bring the second foot in and extend up.
Yeah, and really pay attention to where Lux's hands are in relation to his hips. They're almost stacked, right? They're not out towards the shoulders of the base. They're right by the hips.
And never bring them back here on the other side of the flyer, always on the front side of the flyer. So that's a really useful technique to get in. Is that one that you think will work for you, Ivan and Bo? And if this feels something that you don't feel comfortable with because you don't have a spotter, I'm going to encourage you to skip it. It's not worth going over your base's head. Ivan, if you don't feel like you can prevent your legs from going this way, this can be lethal, lethal. If we bring our flyers over our head, especially if we're holding onto their arms, there's not much that they can do to save themselves. And so if this feels like, without a spotter, it's not worth it, I'm going to really applaud that answer and say it's not worth it. Yeah, Kevin, Natalia, you want to see that mount again? Absolutely. From our front plank, one foot goes out, so we come into this reverse inside star or side star position. The second foot, even with the straight leg, we can extend through the arm so that I can get a straight leg to touch the clavicle with my heel. And then as I bend, we rotate toward the back of the flyer shoulder and the center of the base's foot. And then the flyer pushes strongly into the arms to help get the other hip to foot connection free. And the arms are always staying on the front side, never going around the back. If we want to keep bones in their joints, which I do. And Ivan and Bo, if you have a third person there that's spotting you, spotter, I'm going to ask that you stand very close to Ivan's shoulders, like really right up on it, so that there's no space for the flyer to go far. The further a flyer goes, the more dangerous it gets. The smaller they move, the easier it is to keep them safe. So I want your feet touching Ivan's shoulders almost, like really, really close. And then Ivan, just make sure that that's not blocking your view. You can stand over one shoulder if you want, but spotter, don't back up, don't back up, don't back up. Keep the hands connected, hands to hands. And then turn your wrists so that they're facing away, so your knuckles are facing away from you.
I see some of you working on some monos. Great.
Calibrate this for another 30 to 40 seconds.
Kevin and Laura, that last attempt, it came down a little hard, but I really love how slow and methodical your entry was. I think part of what destabilized a little bit is that we entered through a bit of an arch, which has to be corrected once we're stacked, and that can add a lot of inertia. Emily, can you show from a shin foot, like Lux was suggesting?
Not from shin foot, I'd rather it be from the thigh if you're gonna do it.
Okay. Yeah, let's do that. Laura and Kevin, I'd love for you to check this one out. There's a little less going on. So as Lux mentioned, we've got kind of a knee, top, the bottom of the thigh, 2-foot connection. We're taking our time. We've just got nice stable arms, nice stable feet. And then I don't have too far to go. We don't have too far to go because Emily's already pretty close to being inverted. And then I'm just going to stabilize.
Before we do that, Emily, will you bring your knee closer to your chest? Yeah, both, actually the one that's connected to the foot. Yeah, because that helps stack your spine.
Okay, let's actually reverse all the way back to the. So here's where we started from, taking Lux's cue into effect. The flyer's bringing the knee to the chest, and as Lux points out, the flyer's already basically vertical at this point, and all I'm doing is waiting for Emily to put more weight into the shoulder. And then we're just moving very slowly.
All right, give it your last attempt, and we'll move on. Let's see which directions we take in. I do like the reverse strode. I wouldn't mind doing that. Yeah. All right. Come on in. Come on in.
Aerial jigs. Aerial jigs.
Welcome.
Yes.
Just follow along. This is part of the class.
All right. Any questions? It's a reverse star. For those of us that are still in the beginning phases of our reverse star practice, don't worry, that's something that you will get as second nature within the next year, and it's something that is generally really challenging for a lot of new intermediate practitioners. That becomes, it's like the first one that is like, I hate this pose and then I love this pose. And don't worry, there's like other ones that are coming along. Crocs are not far behind. You're gonna hate it, then you're gonna love it.
And you're gonna hate it.
All right, so what we wanna do is we wanna look at a transition going from a reverse throne to a reverse star. That's the part I do care more about. So we'll see. We can, for those of you that have the practice, we're going to show it as a full cycle that goes reverse throne to reverse star back to reverse throne. But really, we're most interested in the reverse throne to reverse star part of it. So for those of us that are newer, that's the part we want you to focus on. Next slide. So we're going to mount into our reverse throne. There are a number of ways to get there. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to turn to look at each other. How's it going? Okay. And we're going to take a reverse hand-to-hand grip here. And it's important to take it here and not here. And the difference really is that I'm either on the outside of my leg or between my legs. And if I'm between my legs, we're going to end up with some conflict in the limbs. And so we want to avoid that conflict by just being free of them. From there, I'm going to release my front leg. I'm going to release the grip on the front leg, and I'm also going to balance on it.
I did shift my foot slightly onto kind of the IT band area so that it's a little closer to the center line.
And that way we don't run out of toes so quickly. From there, I'm going to show the shoulder to the base, and I'm going to move my head out of the way just the way Emily described earlier. And then I'm going to curl abdominally and try to bring my hips over my shoulder as the base is helping that. And then we're going to reach the second foot to the second shoulder. From there, I shift onto the second foot, and I'm going to bring my leg across my body. Chris is going to bend until we reach that IT band, and now we're on the same position on the second side. Kind of give a little bit of a backward bend with my leg. I'm going to wrap it around as Chris bends the knee. If that knee is not bent, I'm not going to get this wrap. And then we can sit up and repeat. Can you rotate about 45 degrees? Excellent. So once again, we take our reverse hand-to-hand grip. In this moment, I can press through the back leg and free up the front leg completely so we can get whatever position we want on it. I'm not pulling on the arms to do it. From there, foot comes to shoulder, shoulder comes to foot.
I'm bending my left leg, receiving leg, to help load him into stack.
I move my head out of the way, bring my foot across the body, which is probably the most disorienting part for the flyer. And then from here,
yeah, this arm's not doing much. This arm is about to be really important.
That knee bend helps me hook, which brings me back to sit. This piece, going from reverse throne to reverse star, is something that we're using as a calibration for something else. It is actually one of our favorite cycles because it's just two poses. It works nice and fluidly. It has an up and down. It has a rotation. It's quite fun. I didn't have any clever names, so I just took the word throne and star and put them together and call it reverse strone. And so this is your reverse strone. And let us know if you have questions. Your turn in 3, 2, 1. And yeah, Josh.
Is this Kundi spin? Have you heard of a move called Kundi spin?
Yeah, it is this. So the Kundi spin was created by Jason and Chelsea, and they did that kind of like in parallel independent. And really, it's not that different, except that they really developed this to be done without the base's hands. And we're very intentionally using the base's hands. But aside from that, it's really the same thing.
So they developed in parallel, like calculus, so that you basically developed calculus.
Exactly, exactly. I'm arrogant.
Calculus.
Yeah.
And so did Jason Chelsea.
Calculus of the body.
And Josh, I love it when you're a nerd. Keep nerding at me. Yeah, Nicole, Brent, we got you. And then B and Alex, it's not only about how high it is versus the knee, but it's where it is on the circumference of the leg. If it's too much on the top of the quad, you're not going to get a good rotation. So make sure you're on the side of the IT band well enough. Again? Yeah. Cool? All right.
Jay and Danielle going into regular strone.
Yeah.
I see it.
Regular strones are really fun also, more complicated.
Nice, John and Tamara.
Excellent spot, Ivan.
Yeah. Great. Oh, there's the heart. Yeah.
Get it, Jay and Danielle. Get it. Stabilize. Breathe. Relax.
Yeah, got all kinds of new people to watch now.
Yeah, Matt and Athena. Fucking so strong looking. Now that's going to make Jason and Chelsea really proud. All right, give it your last moments and come on in. Welcome back, Chris and Diego.
Megan and Brent,
Haley.
a long time ago, if I recall.
Long time ago. We're talking 2012, 2014. Shoot, maybe even earlier. That could be 2012, 2011. All right, come on in, come on in. Riley and Tyler, I kind of love the formality of the chair. It's like next level Acro luxury, right? Yes, yes.
Oh, there's 2 chairs.
Yes, yes.
Wow, it's like lecture. Who's lecturing who?
I know. Like, I'm like, are we teaching them or are they judging us? Both. Oh, taking notes on us. Y'all are classy. That is some classy class. All right. That's one of them reading books. Is that a word book or a picture book? Okay, what are we doing next? Kind of feel like first part of Dustbuster because we're on a time crunch here. Yeah. No, I want to get to that. The refinement of it, we might only be able to be working through the jam, so let's at least get through the foundational part of it. So we do want to look at, this next piece will be the first part of the Dustbuster. Okay, so we have a new grip we want to establish here. It is a hand-to-hand grip with some additional support. So we take our hand-to-hand grip. Sure. Yes, the other arm. It is your
Oh, you're right.
Yeah. And so what we have here is the flyer is reaching across their body and across the base's body for the hand-to-hand grip, and reinforcing it with the second arm somewhere on the forearm, traditionally above the elbow, but your proportions may dictate somewhat different. But above the elbow will likely be more stable if you can get there.
Once this hand grip is established, I'm going to unhook my front leg and push into this point of support to lift my hips up higher so that Chris can replace his foot. At that point, I can unhook my back leg.
Yeah, from my perspective, for a moment, there's a lot of weight going through this structure right here, so it's pretty key that the base keeps their elbow above their shoulder, otherwise it could collapse in a really uncomfortable way. I'm setting up my elbow to shoulder line here.
the lift, the placement to our inside star. Yeah, go for the next piece, because we're just gonna go around to this side here. Cool? So that's just the backside of a ninja star after that rotation from reverse throne to an inside star, and then the backside of a ninja star. So just those pieces to start with. The most important thing that we really want to establish is the reinforcement of that arm and the lift of the hip so that we cannot slide on the surface of the flyer, but we can place in a intelligent and deliberate point on the hip to foot connection. Make sense, everyone? Yeah, that's most of you. Some of you might be lying. Nick and Tori will show it again, but we want to give you all an opportunity to go play with that. So go ahead in 3, 2, 1. How are your hips? You good? Okay. Hand-to-hand grip, reinforce, hand to forearm, lifts, replaces, backside of a ninja. Mm-hmm. A little bit higher, please. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Correction. Keep up. You said higher. What's that? You said high. You want to? Yeah, no, that's good. That's it, right? That's right. Yeah. You did. Eventually, it was kind of weird.
Okay. I was studying things.
One more. Just question how I like it to be.
The same way.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. It's actually better to do it this way before we show that backside transition. That's a good point. I forgot to do that.
Flyers, use the strength in your arms to lift your hips up so that foot can be replaced.
Nick and Tori, I want y'all to start over. And then the one thing I want you to look at, Nick and Tori, is that if, Nick, you have your arm all the way extended, is that preventing Tori from giving appropriate pressure? And can you bend your elbow a little bit until you feel stronger through Tori's arms? And Tori, push down into the shoulder to lift your leg. Into Nick's shoulder. Good. Now continue. Which could be okay as long as they can still hit that humerus. Yeah. And that will be like, because like Matt's legs are so long, and then like my legs are so short, so we might not both keep straight arms in that.
Some days you're very barrel chested, so it can be difficult to hit that diagonal.
Yeah, but like these conversations are really good for anyone that's listening to this afterwards also. So yeah.
Yeah, I see Jane and Danielle.
Yeah, and I really think of these things as more of like, can we maintain tension rather than can we find a shape? Because we can feel when it dissipates and we can feel when it hits. And we always have to find out where to put these puzzle pieces to make them fit. And Evan, Sarah, if you have questions, let us know. All right, we're gonna give it just another moment and come on in. I see some of us are already doing the whole piece, which is great. You're gonna be set up for what we want to eventually do with it. Yeah, pork chop.
So we're getting to the point where he replaces his foot, but as I try and unwrap my leg that is wrapped, it is tipping us every time.
Let's see what you got.
The curse is less.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Lux.
Chris, I also really liked how you used your second arm to brace that connection. That was great.
Yeah, into it. That was really nice, just to give a little bit of extra support if it feels like we're not stable there. And then Chris.
I was pushing him in weird directions the first couple times, so.
Yeah. And then Chris, you can always lessen the amount of pressure on that arm by bending the legs more, if you want to keep the weight in the legs a little bit more. Cool. All right. So we basically have it. This next piece is going to hopefully feel relatively intuitive. We were using a really similar technique on the reverse throne that we were just playing with. So if you were going back into the reverse throne from reverse star, this should be really transferable. And we just want to look at making that connection and making the cycle whole so that we can then look at this modification that we want to start to play with. We don't know how far we'll get into it, but we're going to start to play with it. Yeah, we'll do the whole thing. So from our reverse throne, we make our connection, we release the front leg, get to the hip, go backside of the ninja start, and then here, we're gonna re-grip over top, not underneath. We're gonna do it over top, new hand on top, and then this leg, I'm going to bend it back behind me. We'll show it at a different angle also, so that as I extend through this arm into Chris's arm, Chris bends the knees so that I can re-grip the feet on the shins. And then let's rotate, I think, this toward the, yeah. I'm watching everything in mirror on the camera, so it's math. But here, yeah, all right, so I have an extended leg and then I bend that leg back behind me. Chris finds my hamstring as I push it down. I don't look at it, I can feel the connection all the way through the skeleton to the ground through Chris in that hand-to-hand grip. Yeah. If you have any question about that, you can also just right here, take a hand-to-hand grip and feel the weight move back into that so that I know where that line is, so that as I come onto one, I can still feel it. As I come onto the other, I can still feel it. And then we can make our whole transition through the dust buster. If, as a flyer, my elbow is bent in that last moment, my base can't push up through it. They're only gonna find my elbow and it's likely gonna hurt my shoulder and destabilize this piece. So as we're going through that last piece of it, flyers, your straight arm will be really helpful if your base is going to stay underneath you. Make sense, flyers? All right, give it a shot. Let us know if you have questions. And yeah, Carmel, we'll show it again.
More slowly, please.
More slow.
Whoa, that class. Whoa, we're gonna have to redo that.
Thank you. Kylie, Tyler, we're taking bows for you here. Sorry, thank you, thank you, thank you. Show it again, nice and slowly. So we'll take the grip and release the foot to the hip, and then through the back side of a ninja star. We reach over top for the grip, and I extend my elbow so that the base can get underneath it. Bend your elbow a little bit so that you can get under my arm. And then pushing up through that.
We're back again. Yeah. One more speed.
That's
Regular speed.
Can we? Is that okay for you?
Yeah, so
Yes. So,
I just want to talk about what the key parts are at the base last second.
yeah.
So the really important parts, two things to keep in mind is the base here is I need this connection really strong because I'm about to bear a lot of torso weight, and this knee needs to bend deeply to help the flyer sit up.
So he's not going to bend his elbow until he touches my hamstring, but does get there before any weight comes onto it. So we don't want weight in this until the flyer's arm is straight. Cool? We'll show one more time for exactly where that moment is. In this moment, the weight is in the hip. As we switch, the weight is still in the hip. Only now, as we step into the other hamstring, do we feel the weight push into the arm to help sit up. Cool.
Yeah, slow-mo mode was very helpful.
Excellent, excellent. I actually really love slow-mo mode to practice.
Now I do it double fast. Kidding. And I want to hear the high-pitched voice from you. And then,
Come on, come on.
I just want to hear squirrel voice.
So we're gonna take a reverse hand, or take a hand-to-hand grip, move to the hip, and the hip, and back side of the ninja start up into the reverse front hip, and reaching around right again for the hip, going.
Okay, that was worth it.
No, you're gonna have to be old enough to know what tape is to know what that voice really is.
That was pretty impressive.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. For those of you that don't know what tape is, visit your local history museum. You will find these things called cassettes.
VHS.
Kevin and Talia, that was really good. If the base bends the leg quite a bit, that's going to be a much smoother, easier, more accessible sit-up.
Welcome back. Nice, Riley and Tyler. That was beautiful. Touch the base. It's pretty good.
I have a best friend called Inspiration.
I do too. So is it even anything, or is it just kind of sweet? Yeah, I do.
It's good. I actually wish it was stronger.
Yeah. Yeah, Chris Haley. Yeah, eyes on you. It's tongue strong, but not throat strong. Oh, yeah, the grip. Let's change that grip. Flip that grip. Flip it. Yes, yes, yes. There you go. Yeah, Nick Torrey, eyes on you. And then no reverse hand-to-hand. You're going to stick with your hand-to-hand. And then that one, instead of reaching underneath, reach over top. And do we get lost? But switch the grip again. All right, let's start over.
Yeah, it's getting more complicated.
Yeah, we've done too many grip switches. And what I'll ask is to not switch grips. Guessing. Let's yeah, start at the beginning. And then we'll let you know if the grip needs to switch, but only switch as you hear it.
Nick and Tori, I did watch that one. It's looking pretty good. The arm connection sets up well, but your left leg, your receiving leg base is not bending very much, and so the flyer's kind of having to climb uphill. Really think about trying to maintain the strong arm connection while bending the left leg, Nick, very deeply.
That's right, Haley. And now release the first arm as you are going back. And now we want to get Haley's arm straight and push up through that. And then Chris, bend those knees, bend those knees, bend those knees as you push up through the arm. Yeah. Push up through the arm, find that shoulder. Good. Nice work. Yep. That's the pieces.
Tori and Nick, do you want to see one more, what I mean?
Switch that grip again, Haley.
Okay.
Over top.
This is
Nice,
the very
nice,
last part.
nice.
So Nick and Tori, this part's looking great. I see both of you focusing on establishing this connection and getting it centered under the flyer and over the base.
Yeah.
And then my leg, watch what happens to my knee.
Another thing too is I'm trying to keep my chest lifted because if it dips down at my elbow bends, I'm gonna have to rework to get my chest up again. So I'm trying to keep it high.
So I'm reaching up to connect, but I'm bending to receive. And by the time we've transferred weight to this foot, this knee is almost in my armpit.
All right, giving it your last attempts. And we will look at how strong our stomachs are, flyers. All right, all right, all right. Start to come on down, come on in.
Oh, that was pretty good.
Can we do a cannon? I go first.
Cannon?
Let's go, and then you go. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Come to the Acro, stay for the dance choreography.
You're welcome. All right, all right, all right. So, it's not the most difficult, it's not the easiest, it's a nice, like, intermediate, really fun, smooth potential washing machine. Any questions with it? Great. Then I would love to see everyone video it and post it online, and let's all show off how good our dustbusters are. The dustbuster was a piece that I wrote a number of years ago at Burning Man during a dust storm with a gentleman named Daniel Scott, who wrote a number of things with me that were a ton of fun, and this one was one that we really enjoyed, and we called it Dustbuster because it was during a dust storm that we developed it. If you don't like it, please send messages to him. If you like it, please feel free to send those to me. What we'd like to play with next, and this will be something that we're going to use as a transition toward the jam time. So we're going to stick around for another hour, but the class officially ends in about 10 minutes. And so once we shift over into the jam, anything that y'all want to play with, we can play with. And if you want to keep on working on the stuff that we're developing here, we'll keep on giving some pieces of it and help y'all through it. Even if it's at different paces, we're happy to just kind of free flow and work with everyone at whatever they're trying to work on. And we'll just see kind of how crazy that gets with so many people, and hopefully some people will be practicing while others are asking questions and whatnot. But what we're going to attempt to do is start to move through a transition where we're going to have our arms as flyers free for a moment and try to find some stability in that free moment. Yeah, this is a backplane version of this. Yeah. So can we go sideways and just take a look at the shape of the flyer's body here? So what we're looking for is we're not going to be on the sacrum, and we're not going to be underneath the glutes. we're going to be right across kind of the top part of the glutes, like right around where the piriformis line is. And base is going to have their feet slightly externally rotated as they're giving support there. And so as a flyer, I'm kind of like not quite in a back plank, not quite in a seated position, but sort of at this diagonal between the two, so that I can reach into one for one side, or we can go backwards, and I'm going to reach behind from the inside of the legs to the other side. And I just would like to be able to feel support, and Chris would like to cradle the support. And this is starting to move more into a side start position, but we're going to play with it and start to see if we can even find more surface areas and more angles across the backside and bottom side of the glutes to see what ranges we still have stability in. If it gets too high, it starts to feel very back plank to side starry. If it gets too low, it starts to feel more throny. And so we're really looking at all of the pieces in between. And so we want people to go through not just one, but multiple angles here. Because in acrobatics, we don't always get exactly what our ideal is, and we still have the ability to find stability even when it's not the most ideal. Base can also have arms up in case the shoulders were to go back too far to help support that as we're attempting this. Flyers, the abdominal engagement to keep the chest lifted is significant. So I am really engaging well enough to make it so that the shoulders don't tip back here if I start to relax the abdominals. Make sense? So it's just a transition, trying to go across the center of the glutes or slightly higher than the center of the glutes, trying to not let this be sacrum, not let this be sits bones, get that place in between. Cool? All right, give it a shot. 3, 2, 1.
Almost, Tori.
Kevin and Laura, your practice is so clean. Yeah. Chris Haley, yeah, we'll show it again. And yeah, let's go head on this time.
Ivan and both. Good spot, Ivan.
One thing I do as a base that I find helps quite a bit is I keep an open, soft foot as we're kind of smearing into position. But then once I'm in position, I squeeze my foot just a little bit to cup the hip softly so that it's a little more secure. At that point, I've made this little cupping shape with my foot. It just adds a little more stability.
And I am strongly engaged in the glutes as well here, really making it so that I'm protecting the piriformis, which has a lot of nerve, sciatic nerve running right through that, or underneath it, or on top of it, depending on your presentation. And so I'm giving some engagement, I'm giving a significant engagement through the glutes to not let the heel press into the hip socket through that.
Nice, Riley and Tyler. Nice this one.
And Riley and Tyler, y'all calibration, you look so much more calibrated over these last few months. It's really significant. Yeah, Chris and Diego, we'll show that again. Sure. So my arms are externally rotated to the inside of the calves.
And I'm also squeezing in onto his hips a little bit. I can even help stack with the trailing foot, the foot that we're leaving from.
Cool. Good communication, John and Tamara. I was confused also. All right, all right. Let's come on in. Yeah, so I'm gonna wrap it up and then I'd like to show this piece and then let them do what they want with it.
Might take us a couple times to rev it up, warm it up.
Yep, yep, all good. The worse we do it, the more they learn.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, no, be intentional.
Yeah. All right, come on in. No, that would destroy my knees. All right. So I would like to congratulate you all. That's 2.5 hours of practice. Really well done. Really well done. It's a lot of content and a lot of focus. And I imagine, unlike us, you're probably practicing multiple times each week. So you're well calibrated for this type of thing. I know that nobody's practice has faltered at all during our quarantine time. And everyone is really diligently, not just practicing, but training throughout this time. And so, yeah, good flex B. I'm feeling it. That's like, I'm working on it myself. I'm trying to get at least a couple days in, which, you know, I'll let you know when that happens. But y'all are looking good. Stamina, smiles, pace, and quality of practice really looked great throughout that entire time. And of course, for those of you that are watching this afterwards and were not with us live, I'm sure you're doing just as well also. What we're going to do is, so let me wrap up by saying, for those of us that are like, well, that's 2.5 hours, I'm starving, I need to go take care of my body, I need to go get on with my day, whatever it is. Thank you so much for participating in this, for being here. We're going to do this at least once a month for the next unforeseeable amount of time. I'm not sure if it's always going to be intermediate. Sometimes it might be advanced. Ideally going to be doing it where the intermediate happens every month and advanced will happen in between then sometimes. So it might be a twice a month event for those that want to work into the more advanced practice. If you feel like you're on that threshold between the intermediate and advanced and would like to move toward that, feel free to reach out and I'm happy to start to work with you to develop exercises and techniques that will get you prepared for that class if you're not quite sure about it, but are interested in it. So please do reach out. And for everyone else, please, yeah, tell your friends and invite more people, particularly if we could get groups of 3, once it feels safe enough to do so from a contamination standpoint. Then that will give us a greater ability to do more things when we can invite more spotters into the practice again. So I'm hoping to see more and more of this over the next few months, but we're excited to continue these at least monthly. So thank you so much for participating in it. It's been phenomenal. A lot of familiar faces and a lot of new faces. So we hope you enjoyed it. If there are things that would make the experience better for you, please reach out, let us know. And if they're reasonable, we'll implement them. If they're unreasonable, we'll smile and say thank you and move forward from there. What we're going to do now is we're going to just be here for the next hour. And so whatever you want to do with that hour is up to y'all. If you want to watch other people practice and get ideas for things and take notes, that's great. If you want to ask questions and have a discussion about anything that feels relevant from an acro standpoint, let us know. We're happy to participate in that. And then if you have specific questions about any transitions that we played with today or otherwise, we'll do our best to give you whatever the next steps are to make that better in your practice. What we are going to show that is an option to play with is that we took this dust buster, and I'll give a little bit of a background story, is that the dust buster, as I said, I wrote with Daniel Scott, and I've been working with my first partner named Graham, who I developed the Ninja Star and the spider roll and just like a whole bunch. I think we're like almost 60 line items of things that we developed together over the first 10 years of practice that we worked together. And I've recently, after about a 7-year break, we've been working together again a bit, starting in January. And he took a look at Dustbuster, and he said, that's really cool, because he's been out of the game for a long time and he hasn't seen this piece. And so I showed it to him, and he said, it's great, but there's that one piece in the reverse throne that I think can be smoother. And he kind of hemmed and hawed it and looked at some techniques, and then the genius that he is came up with some footwork that I just really have been enjoying. And so we're looking to do the Dustbuster, but to take the reverse throne out of it. And that's kind of what we just talked about in the transition that we were just playing with, in that like sort of in between sitting and lying down position, is to essentially try to execute that ideal that Graham had. And so it's relatively new. It's not terribly well calibrated, so we'll let you know when it's a good one.
You need to walk me through this again.
Yeah. So we're going to go here. We're going to go up and around, kind of the same thing that we've always done. And here, we're just going to go, and we have this moment that's free, and I'm just going to twist and regrip again, so we never have to sit up. We just move into this position here. And so it's a pretty significant rotation of the torso of the flyer there. And we're trying to like minimize that point of no connection, but we also do want to like allow for this moment of anticipation and suspense, and let it to kind of build. And then the base is like, well, I have the feet in the position that's going to cradle you, but the flyer is the person that has to rotate their torso with stability in order to get that grip again. And we're going to do it a few times. I don't have the ability yet to slow this one down as much as a lot of other things that we can slow down, but look for how the hands regrip on the base's arm with that hand-to-hand grip and that hand-to-forearm support. Because as soon as that hand-to-forearm support comes in, I feel stable again, and then we can move forward. This one does tend to, after a few rotations, go up the body. And so generally after 2 or 3, it ends up a little bit too high, and we're still working on getting that lower. I've tried this as a base a few times. It also is really difficult to get that to stay low. And so we're still cultivating refinement there, and that's what we're going to invite y'all also. So we'll show it again, and we're going to show it in both directions because my body's a little bit strange, but in one direction, I can twist all the way around and have almost no gap at all or no gap at all in that regrip. And then in the other direction, I don't have as much rotation and ability. And so you saw that there's like that moment of suspension for the regrip. All right, so take a look at how the hands regrip on the base's arm for stability, and then look at the difference between the two sides to see how more and less mobility will change the excitement and suspense that we experience as bases and flyers going through this. One second.
Oh, I forgot the hand.
Yeah, gotta get that arm up. All right, so we're gonna go up again and twist.
And twist.
All right, and then let's go the other direction. 1, 2. And I can here reach almost all the way back and get that arm here. So hold on, Chris, I just want to illustrate this.
Oh, I see, okay.
So get this foot back where it was, bend the knees a bit, both of them, so that I can reach back and get that.
Okay, yeah.
So here I have that ability with my right shoulder to reach around and so that I can stabilize during that re-grip. And on the other side, my shoulder doesn't do that. So neither one is right or wrong, but it is worth at least illustrating that a lot of different techniques can be done to get to the same place. And then between the two of us, we still have a lot to work on with how the legs are moving on the hips, which part of my hips are in contact, and is my shoulder rotating before my base, destabilizing them, after my base destabilizing them, or with my base reinforcing their stability. And that's a game that we'll only be able to really explore over time as we continue to calibrate. Josh Kerma, what you got?
So you said it's pretty similar to Ninja Star, right? So how many moves of that are in common with Ninja Star?
Only the backside of the Ninja Star. It's only that, it's only where the part where we have the two hands in the hand-to-hand grip, that's the backside. As soon as we're coming over the base's head again, it's not a Ninja Star anymore, because that would be in this position with the arms, and we're in this position. I'm here, not here. So it's a different shoulder rotation. Any other questions? All right, so again, happy to continue to go over this technique, happy to continue to show it, happy to continue to discuss it, but this is really up to y'all. You can do whatever you want. You can slowly trickle out and leave. You can stick around and watch. You can stick around and talk. Whatever serves you, feel free to unmute yourself and wish us a goodbye or sneak out like I often do at parties and just leave without saying anything. Either way, we won't be offended. We're really grateful that y'all were here.